March 23rd, 2026, right at, let's see, my camera's set because I got cut off for a software update. Yeah, so I think, obviously something's paying attention to me. And that's okay with me. I don't mind, had to break my glasses out and everything. And so I have 35 minutes to go on my video because it left off on a high note. It left off on the atrocity of AIDS and HIV and how it got turned into COVID country and put out on to humanity, to all of those innocently, like Ryan White and myself and my son, and everybody was innocent. You know how much collateral damage, how many women got AIDS and HIV because they didn't understand about protection? Yeah, and let alone COVID country. And the residuals, it's just, I have to say it because it's the truth. It's my experience. This is what I saw and went through. So anyway, Jacob took the medicine for those years, maintained sobriety, kept my job, and watched Jacob suffer mercilessly with PICC lines and hospital stays and IVs and things most people couldn't even imagine or want to see. My poor baby Jacob went through taking AZT, taking DDI willingly, with giving it to himself. Totally. And finally, it was 3 weeks, 6 weeks before he died. And I'll share a miracle. Well, heavenly intervention that showed up for me. I'm so grateful. 6 weeks before Jacob died, they laid me off. Well, no, my doctor ordered me off work because I, at that point, had an AIDS diagnosis. I was so sick trying to do a job and take care of Jacob in the hospital and go stay with him, go out and see clients, go back to the office again, set up the next day, go home, see Lucas, see Jeff, spend some time with them, go back to the hospital. It was awful to go through. And it cost my insurance company a buttload. But hey, they made a lot of money. Anthony Fauci and those pharmaceuticals and stuff. They made a ton off my son Jacob. So anyway, 6 weeks before he passed away, my doctor laid me off. Best thing he could have done. At least I got to spend those 6 weeks with my son. And in those 6 weeks, I had a dream. I had two, actually. And the first dream was I was in a military installation, and there were these half-moon bunkers that were all over the place for ammunition, and some were barracks. But anyway, I'm in this military installation, and I'm running with Jacob, trying to find a place to hide him because there were these Terminators after us to kill Jacob, right? And I'll never forget it. Their metal was a color, though. One was purple, one was yellow, one was red, one was blue, and one was white, and one was green. And the hue of their metal was that color. And I'm running with Jacob, sweating bullets because they're after him. And I'm running through, and I run into my mother on a swing set, and she looked absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous, she did. My mother, Patricia Stella Gravesmore, and she was right there smiling at me and swinging on this swing. And she said, "I'll help you find a place to hide, honey. Come with me." And so I went with my mommy, and she took me to this bunker that had a bunch of ammo boxes and all new weapons that were still in wax and put in crates. And there were these huge crates of weaponry in this bunker. This barracks. It was like a half-moon barracks. And she tucked me in between the wall and a crate of weapons because she said the metal would hide me from them as long as I stayed between the wall of the bunker No, it was up above. It wasn't a bunker. It was a half shell, like, supplies where you put a plane, kind of. And anyway, as long as I stayed between the wall and the crate, they wouldn't detect me. So, and she says, I gotta go. And she smiled at me. You'll be okay. You'll be safe here. And I woke up from the dream. And then 3 weeks later, Jacob's getting sicker. He had been in the hospital for 3 weeks and out of the hospital for 3 weeks and in the hospital for 3 weeks and out of the hospital for 3 weeks. It was awful with pneumocystis pneumonia. And 3 weeks before he died, I was sitting in Jesus' lap praying. Now, most people say, oh, you don't sit in Jesus' lap. No, not normal people don't do that. Well, I do that. After Heavenly Father lifted me, he said, whenever you need to talk to me, just sit with me in the garden, sit with Jesus, and just be with me, okay? And I'll just like he always has. So anyway, I had this dream that, well, not a dream, it was a vision, where I was in the garden with Jesus, and I was a little girl about 5 years old in a little red dress with yellow and white daisies. All of 5 years old in kindergarten, right? And of course, I rush up to him, sit in his lap, and I'm telling him all my concerns about Jacob and the world and everything that's happening. And he looked down at me and he said, it's time to give me Jacob. And I said, really? I looked up and I said, really? He said, yes, it's time to give me Jacob. And I knew what that meant. I said, when? And Yeshua looked down at me and said, I can't tell you when, honey. Just got to be ready. I said, okay. And he says, well, let's do a little role playing. Let's imagine Jacob there in his crib. And I know you're a little girl, but I want you to take him out of there, and I want you to put him in my lap, and I want you to walk away, and I don't want you to look back. Okay? And I looked up at him, and of course I'm like, really? Yes. And he winked at me and he said, do you trust me? I said, totally. He says, okay, you go get him then. To me. And so I took little Jacob in this vision, this meditation, and I put him in Jesus' lap, and he looked so tenderly at me. He says, now it's time to walk away, honey, and don't look back. And I walked away, and I wanted to look over my left shoulder. I wanted to. And he says, no, you just keep walking forward. You'll be okay. Just keep looking forward, baby. I'll be with you. Okay? So, it was really hard. I was crying in the vision, in the meditation. I was crying. I knew it was coming, but of course he couldn't tell me when because I had to be ready, right? So 3 weeks later, Jacob was back in the hospital. He had an infection in his sinuses, and they were getting him up into ICU, and he had heart failure right there in front of me, just as I was about to get in to see him. Of course, all the doctors and nurses come rushing in. They had to cut his wrist with no anesthetic to get, IVs in his wrist. And I saw his eyes pop out and his arm come over, and oh my God, I was all alone looking in the window watching this happen. And I remember standing back going, okay, this is happening. Okay, Jesus, and I felt like I was in a cave all alone. Jeff wasn't there or anything. I was all by myself when this happened. And I'm like, okay, Heavenly, you told me this was going to happen. So I had that reassurance. I was very, very blessed to have Yeshua there in my imagination, my imaginal, in my garden, within, telling me what was going to happen. I had to use my imaginal, some would say imagination, but it's your imaginal, to be in the garden with him, which is not hard to do if you use your imagination. Or your imaginal, like Mary Magdalene would say. And so he lasted 3 weeks after that. There was a lot of heart damage, obviously. He's already battling AIDS and HIV. And those last 3 weeks of his life, no person, no human being should have to go through what he went through. And finally, 3 weeks later, it was time to set him free. And I had to argue with the doctors. They said, well, he opened his eyes yesterday. I said, Can you tell me what you saw in his eyes? What did you see? Did you see a happy little boy who's playing free? No, you saw a little baby who's in agony, who needs to be free. And he's going to be. And because Jesus told me so, that was right. It was the right thing to do. Better than going to Disney World like his dad wanted to do, and have him have a heart attack right in the middle of a park. No, I was going to respect my son and set him free gently, easily. And yeah, we took him off at 3 p.m. exactly on March 16th, 1992, 2 days before his 3rd birthday. And he was finally free, and I felt him go from me when he left that day. Part of me went with him, absolutely. And my friend Linda LaGuardia, who was there when I got the job at UTI, she was working for me there, and she was there for me, my friend. She wrote me a song called the Queen of Strength. The Queen of Strength sits on her throne of stone with a heart that's made of gold and a strength that's all her own. And Linda LaGuardia sang that for me. She made a tape, but I lost it along the way. But anyway, yeah. That's what happened, that's just my experience. I wasn't the only one to lose my baby to AIDS and HIV or a loved one. I'm with everyone who's lost anyone in this way. AIDS, HIV, or COVID country, or anything else our government has done. And I'm sorry to say that I love my country. Confirmation. I totally love my country and her people. It's just hard to witness the atrocities, like these, unnecessarily. So anyway, I let my Jacob free that day. And like my mom, I loved her enough to let her go too. If you remember from that chapter, I think it was chapter 3. Anyway, this is chapter 6, the second half of it. I'll have to label it as such. And then from there, I'll try to get through it because it's a little ways. I got 30 minutes, or no, 15 minutes, about that anyway. Yes, I'm still smoking. I know I shouldn't be. Please forgive me. I'm a work progressively. And I'm drinking my water and not alcohol. Hey, that's a plus. I can do this straight up with love for humanity. Because I'm not sure why I'm doing it this way. I'm called to. I'll just put it that way. Anyway, so after that, I found out Jeff was cheating on me with another lady called Dawn. And, of course, he wasn't telling me the truth all along. He'd been seeing her for a long time and not telling me, of course. And I ended up having to be the one to tell her that, I got a hold of her number just by a miracle, another intuition by the Heavenly Holy Spirit, which I give him all the credit for. And also I had a dream, 2 dreams. Gosh, is it all going to be about my dreams? I had 2 dreams after Jacob died. One was I asked Heavenly Father if I did the right thing by letting him free, by letting him go. And I had a dream that I was back at the hospital and the doctors got him back alive again. And they came running to me, hey, look, we got him alive, come and see. And when I saw my son alive and suffering, I wanted to kill him. So that told me I did the right thing. Okay? Yeah. And that was a wonderful gift that I got. And then another one was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, where he showed me Jacob up in heaven, that he made it safely. That was before the dream. I did the right thing. And we played that song, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, for his funeral. And Heavenly had a way for me to see my Jakey. And a one-way mirror kind of effect in the universe. It was really cool. But, so then, I found out about Jeff, and I finally got rid of him. And I told Dawn about his condition. And he tried to deny it to her, and I said, hey, come to my doctor's appointment. He can tell you about me. He can't disclose about Jeffrey, but he can tell you about me, certainly. And I invited her to come and see. Well, she saw him. She didn't come. I mean, she came. She was sitting outside the door, but she, because I'd never met her. But she was sitting outside the door, and I guess she didn't have the courage to come through the door for my doctor's appointment, Dr. Fitzgibbons, Michael Fitzgibbons, in Santa Ana, California. But she found out. She got the truth, and she accepted him. And I didn't want nothing to do with him anymore. No, he didn't tell her, and she had kids, and he knew damn well our son was dying of AIDS, and I had it too, and he gave it to us. And yet, he didn't tell her what he had, and he'd been doing her for 6 months, and she had kids. Yeah, that's the kind of men, unfortunately, my dad raised me to be with. Yeah. Unfortunately for me. But hey, that was, I had to have this experience. For some reason, only the heavenly understands this. And I have to trust them, as I've done with everything, including my children. I've had to completely release, with non-attachment, with love. Release my children, release everybody with love. That's all I had control of. And I moved back to Northern California, back because my brother said, hey, we want you home, we want you home, we want you home. I had friends in Southern California. I kind of, in a way, shouldn't have left them. But I went back home as my family requested, like before. It did not end up good for me really at all. No. I made a mistake listening to my family, And I went back there and stayed with my dad for a while. Of course, my brother Clifford wouldn't let me and David have a place to stay, even though he had my mom's house still. Didn't want no kids in the way, And anyway, so I don't want to burn up my time hoeing and umming at 1711. Anyway, so, I stayed with my dad for a while and dated a guy named Steve who was really, really nice to me. But what really wasn't for me. And I made a go of it with Lucas in Pleasant Hill and was searching for a family to take care of him should I pass on. That was really important to me, that he had somebody to take care of him. Because remember, I had an AIDS diagnosis. I didn't know how long it was going to be for me till the other shoe dropped. And Lucas didn't know. I didn't want to tell him that. I knew when he was old enough, it would come up and he would be ready. Not then. And I was sending him down to see Jeff. Jeff had come up for his surgery. And Jeff spent more time sleeping than Lucas did, because he was so sickly. And he was getting sicker, and he died in 1995. Not 3 years after Jacob. In October. And he paid the ultimate price, unfortunately, and unnecessarily too. My husband died. Family member number 2, and that was just a matter of time for me. So I was looking for a family for Luke, and I found one, but that would have meant that because I didn't know if I was going to live or die. I wanted to stay with my son as long as I could. And if I had gave him to this family, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have had to give him to him and be alone. Or share him, or I'm not sure. Anyway, so just for laughs and giggles, I put my friend Valerie and I went through the Phoenix program there in 1993. I went through the Phoenix program and got sober again because I relapsed after Jacob died. When I met Steve and I was at my dad's, he was a user. He was a truck driver. So, and my brother Dave, he provided the best speed in Mount Diablo Valley, Contra Costa County. He provided the best speed, and Steve had, so I, of course, and I was so scared to dream. Because as much as those other dreams served me, I had nightmares for months after Jake. When I moved back home, I had awful nightmares about it. And so I was afraid to sleep. So I started using speed again and relapsed after 3 years of sobriety, all through Jake's sickness, all through his illness and everything. And I guess losing Jake was, that and Jeff was just too much for me. And so I relapsed, and I went out there for about 6 months. And I got in the Phoenix program in Concord, California. And my mom had gone through that program. And it was a good one. And I was only able to stay in for 2 weeks, but that was enough. And then I did 2 weeks outpatient. And it was enough to give me a grip and get back off the chips. Put it that way. And the dream stopped. And my pain, I learned how to handle it. Oh, that emergency is good. And I know it's hard for me to see. My eyes are still adjusting. I don't want to go overtime on this chapter because I want it to be an hour. And so I got sober through Phoenix and managed my apartment in Pleasant Hill with Lucas. And he was through all his surgeries and stuff. But, I was really lonely. And so me and my friend Valerie, we met through World, Women Organized to Resist Life-Threatening Diseases, the World Organization in San Francisco. And we met at a retreat. And we became really good friends, and she moved real close to me. And her and I were skating in the park one night, and she's trying to date people, I'm trying to date people, and we have AIDS, right? It doesn't make it very easy in those days, because this was 1993, right? And, so we're skating in the park one night, and we lay down in the grass to take a break from skating, and we're looking at the stars, and I said, there's got to be a way for me to meet somebody without dating them and then liking them and then saying, by the way, I have HIV, I got to break it to you, man, before you kiss me. There's got to be a better way, Valerie. So we're just sitting there, and I asked Holy Spirit, to inspire me. And sure as chips, I got this idea. Hey, what if I placed a personal ad in the paper and just told the truth? Single wife, female, SWF, looking for single male, between 35 and 40. And I put HIV positive, single white female, seeking male, 35 to 40, mature. But I went to place my ad, and Valerie said, that's a great idea. That way, if they want to see, they can. You're being totally upfront, man. And what happened out of that was I had done an article for the Contra Costa Times, not even a couple months before. And front page pictures of me and Jake, and I was educating about women and HIV and how easy it was to get for women because of our menstrual lining, direct blood contact. I was trying to educate, and they put me on the front page with Jacob's, my whole story, Jacob's pictures and everything. And I was treated differently, definitely in my community. But people weren't mean to me. Anyway, so I called the paper to place my personal ad, and they said, we don't got a place for you. You're alternative. And I'm like, what? Well, because it says HIV positive, we don't have a category for you. So no, we won't place your ad for you. And they were so disrespecting. They had no place. I just want to have HIV positive, HIV plus. Okay? And they said, no way. And I actually had to get an attorney to force them to place my ad for me. It was an atrocity. The discrimination I faced, and let alone from my company too, when they found out my doctor put me off work for having AIDS. Oh yeah, they treated me real badly. Discriminatory, and how much discrimination I got from people is a whole nother nightmare story. How I was treated by people when they found out about my AIDS and HIV. No wonder people say, just don't say anything. Just don't say, shh. Just don't say. Well, hey, that's how Jeff gave it to Dawn, by not telling the truth at all. I would have much rather spared her life if he'd just been honest with her. Right? Yeah. And so I was seeking just to be honest, and I like to be honest and open with people. And You know, I wouldn't judge somebody if they had it, but they sure judged me. This has been my whole history. Her story. It's her story. Anyway, so I got my ad in, and sure enough, the next day or the next couple of days, I checked my messages from my personal ad that I never placed before in my life. And I had 3 pages of a legal pad full of names that responded to my ad. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. So I start calling. The first one I call is Mike Ledoux. He's the first on the list, and he left a really nice message. And I put little stars next to his name because, I liked him. I liked his voice. I liked his message. And of course, I called him. I responded. And he was really, really nice. He said, what I appreciate most about you is your honesty. To be so honest and say about your HIV. He said, I thought it meant hot, intense vixen plus. What does HIV mean was the first thing he asked me, and I'm like, oh great, he doesn't know. But I told him, and he says, wow, that took an incredible, I love your honesty. I dig that about you. And of course I told him my story, and we spent hours. As a matter of fact, he got a $1,200 phone bill because he was in the Delta, in Oakley, somewhere in that area, and I was all the way in Pleasant Hill, so it was long distance. And all the hours we spent on the phone, and he didn't tell me he had kids or nothing. He didn't really, he told me about his military and that he was honorable and he was looking for a woman. I met him there in Pleasant Hill. He was really nice to Lucas. He was a real charmer. Totally. And he accepted my AIDS and HIV. He said, I'll be here for you. I'll be here for you. And I'll be there for Lucas. When you take your last breath, I'll be there. And at that point, I'd been drugged through the dirt so badly because of my condition. I guess, I just took it all in. I took it all in, and he rescued me. But little did I know, I was really rescuing him behind the mask that he wasn't showing me. Wowee. Yeah. And he's gone now into eternity like Jeffrey. But yeah, he was a real, he my knight in shining armor. He accepts me for my condition. He's going to be with me and my son and take care of Lucas when something happens to me. I don't have to give Lucas up to a family. He's a veteran. He's honorable. From what he was showing me, the face he was showing me was totally innocent. And honor. I'm like, gosh, man. And he always worked really hard. But there was so much he did not tell me. And I told him, hey, I don't play house. I've got a 5-year-old son. I know you've just known me a few months, but I don't got time to mess around. I don't know how long I'm going to live. We got to get this done. Let's get married. And I thought doing it right from the beginning was the right way to do it. But you see, I didn't know him. And when we moved to Oakley, I found out he had all these charges in Arizona for fraudulent schemes and offices with Dockside Marine. I didn't know anything about it. Nothing. And boy, I got hit with that. And I had to pay for that. And I had gotten some money from Lucas's thing, from them butchering his face. I can't mention the institution. But I got my own side settlement that he took advantage of in a Skippy. And he took advantage of that money. I had to pay his $1,200 phone bill so he could get on probation. Sorta. It was weird. It all hit me. But it wasn't until after I married him. Before that, I didn't say a thing. And then, when we moved to Reno from Oakley, after we got married, New Year's Eve, 1994, yeah, well, 1993. Then I find out, when we moved to Reno right after that, he's got 3 kids he never told me about that he owed back child support for. And I'm like, what the heck is this? What? You didn't tell me after I was honest with you about everything? But then I was already married and obligated. And other than that, he was he was an alcoholic, I found out shortly too. Bad one. that, oh my God, I didn't know the nightmare I got in from the beginning, and I should have got out, and I didn't listen to me. But I didn't know I was going to live. I was like desperate. Well, he'll take me. He'll, until I take my last breath. I have AIDS. And he would drill it in. You're not good to anybody, you fat ass AIDS bitch. When he got drunk, he was vicious. He was vicious. And that takes us up to past 1993. I was only supposed to go to 92, I think. And anyway, that takes us up to 1994, right there at the door, because I married him on New Year's Eve, 1993, thinking I was doing the right thing. Obviously not knowing what I was getting into, totally. And anyway, that takes us up to, 1993. Just me and my story for posterity. I didn't know how messed up this veteran really was in his head, you see. But boy, did I see. It's so sad, you see. And I'm sorry the story can be very long and tragically, but it's my way of putting it out to history and getting it out of me and recognizing my mistakes and seeing what really happened to me. Being the scapegoat for him and everybody. Yeah. And I believed him, and he led me in, totally. So that's at 31, if I can see. 31:29. Yeah, I have 35 minutes for the whole chapter, chapter 6, on March 23rd, 2026. Yeah, and then it only got worse from there, actually. We stayed in Nevada for a while, and he was already cheating on me in the very beginning. And I was duped in to thinking. He showed me enough love to keep me going. I'll put it that way. I learned dysfunctionality, and I didn't think that I would be living. I was living like I was dying. And the longer I stayed, the more obligated I kind of got, in a way. And he adopted Lucas right after Jeffrey died. And so I had his kid by my side, too. And he had my son, too. And I regret doing that. I totally do. Yeah, because I still don't know everything he did to my son. Lucas Robert Raphael Ryder Powers. Ledoux, who I still love today. This was not his fault in any way. My poor baby. I'm going to end the chapter with that, darlings. And hey, yeah, because I'm at 35, I think, already. No, 33. I still got 2 minutes. What do you know? I guess I'm not that long-winded, though. And the candle's going low, but I still hold my hand on that candle for my son. I keep a candle lit, and I'm always thinking about him like that teddy bear. That's what he had in his blanket when Lucas was a baby. And sometimes you think you're doing the right thing, and it's the worst thing that can happen. So you have to be really selective who you're letting in and what they're doing, and telling the truth. If this doesn't demonstrate anything else, it talks about honesty and integrity. And there's a pine cone right there for the pineal, and your connection to the heavenly right there. And yeah, breathe. It's been a long chapter. I had to do it in 2 cuts because I got an update on my software that interrupted me. So I'm sorry, lovelies. I know it's a long listen, but I'm doing it for posterity, and I appreciate you listening. And this helps me to understand and recognize I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one this has happened to by a narcissist. A master at it. A master. And yeah, if this can help anybody, that's what I'm praying for. That they recognize and listen to Carl Jung and listen to Alan Watts and get healed from the trauma you suffered from institutions, governments, judiciary, religions, politicians who've only wanted us separated and not united. And I found that out. the hard way with this DV and not being able to speak to my Lucas, really, and being separated. I'm sending my love, and I'm so sorry, my son. Please forgive me. That's the last thing I gotta say. So it be. Love you, lovelies.